Hello friends and fashion lovers, welcome and welcome back. Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Esther and in this video I'll be showing you how to make this lovely flare dress with bishop collar. For this dress, I used 3 yards of fabric that is by 60 inches. I also use a very lightweight fusible interface and elastic band. For the folding of the dress, you can either fold it by the yardage like so, especially if your fabric is not by 60 or you're quite tall, so it's advisable you fold it on the yardage. And you can also fold it lengthwise according to your fabric length, so it all boils down to your length, the stretchiness of your fabric and pattern of your fabric. It's all up to you how you want it to fold. So I'm going to go ahead and fold my fabric right now, and I'll keep adjusting it till I have my desired length. So while you're folding it and adjusting it, you want to make sure that the upper part of your fabric, that's the smaller part, can house quarter of your bust measurements plus ease and seaming allowance, and also from that point down it should house your dress length, your desired dress length plus hemming allowance. So you just keep folding and adjusting until you get quarter of your bust measurements plus seaming allowance and ease at the top, and also your dress length. Wherever you get this, you want to make sure to pin it down. At the end of the day, I got mine and my hemming up being about 25 inches, and this includes my seaming allowance. With my fabric pinned down, I'm just going to cut it out so that we can all see what I'm working with. So this is what I did. I'm showing you on the paper. So now I'm going to go ahead and place my measurements. So this is just basically it, the down part. So at least you've seen exactly what we are working with, not just fabric all over the place. So at the upper part, I mentioned that it should be able to house quarter of your bust measurements plus seaming allowance and ease and all that. So that is my shoulder line right there. I'm sorry it's not as visible as I would have wanted it to be, but don't worry, as you follow along you're going to get everything I do. So at the shoulder line, just mark half of your shoulder width measurement plus seaming allowance. We are going to be stitching sleeves to this garment, so don't forget to add your seaming allowance. So from the shoulder line, just mark your chest line measurements, that's your armhole line. Mine is 9 inches. Just at that armhole line, go ahead and mark quarter of your round bust measurements plus ease and seaming allowance. I didn't bother to add ease to this garment. Next is to transfer the shoulder width measurements to the chest line so that connecting of the armhole can be easy. So I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I try to make this line as visible as it can, which became mission impossible. And then I'm going to just come to this at about 45 degrees. I'm going to just mark 1 inch. It's just to aid in carving out my armhole. And then I'm going to mark my shoulder slope. Instead of marking 1 inch, I'm marking half an inch. The reason I'm marking half an inch is because I will be seaming it along the shoulder. Next is to mark a neck width of 3.5 inches. You can mark neck width of 3 inches to connect the shoulder slope, but I did 3.5. Do well to connect all the points and also form your armhole. Now go ahead and blend from the bust line to the side of your dress. So right here, I'm just cutting out the dress, and this will be my front before any further adjustments. The next adjustment will be the dress length. From the shoulder line measurement down, you're supposed to have your desired dress length plus hemming allowance, seaming allowance at the shoulder, and a little bit extra so that you can play with if need be. After marking your desired dress length and hemming allowance and seaming allowance, all those allowance, you can either take it and keep marking it all across, but mine, I just like to place a straight ruler and mark that halfway, then I curve the other hem to just avoid it from tripping unnecessarily. So that's how I handle the hem of this dress, and I'm going to do well to cut it out. Please don't cut it very straight, just make sure you curve it a little bit. So I use that front as a template to cut my back piece, and the back is the same length but there's slight difference, and the difference has to do with the center back, which I included a zipper allowance, if I might call that, and also the back is higher than the front by 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimeters. So it's a personal choice, but the center back having a zipper allowance is advisable. Next for me is for me to mark the desired neck width. So I'd mentioned that I'm using a 3.5 inches. So I'm going to mark that now for both the front and for the back. The neck width of 3.5 inches. And the neck depth I'm using is 3.5 inches as well. Please don't forget that I will be seaming the shoulder, so that's like marking 3 inches. And for the back, I'm using 1.5 inches neck depth, which is about 1 inch after seaming. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect those necklines, and then I'm going to cut the necklines out for both the back and for the front. So the armhole I had marked out initially is basically like the armhole for the back. So I'm just going to cut that, and I'm going to make further adjustments for the armhole for the front. For the front armhole, I'm just going to measure the length, find the midpoint, and go in by 1/2 inch, connect it, and then I will cut it out. Now to add pockets to the dress, I just want to the side of the dress and just measure 9 inches down. You can do well to measure from the shoulder to about 2 inches below the waistline. That is where the pocket sits. Mine, that's just about the same. I'm just placing a notch at that point, so you want to notch all the 4 pieces. My back and front is on 4, that's why I notched it that way. And then I am opening the center back. For the sleeve, I just decided to place my fabric on 4-fold. I'm marking my desired sleeve length and I'm adding 3 inches. The reason I'm adding 3 inches to my desired sleeve length is because I will be making elastic casing for the down parts of my sleeve and also the hemming allowance. I just want a little bit of volume for my sleeve. And then I'm marking my sleeve width. Then the cap sleeve, I'm adding a little bit extra so I would be able to give it a bit of gather at the top, just a little bit. And then I'm going to connect this with freehand. I don't know who asked me to connect it using freehand. After connecting it, on the down part of it, I am marking half my wrist measurements, and to have my wrist measurements, I'm adding 5 inches to it. This 5 inches includes seaming allowance. So with that, my sleeve is basically ready to be cut out. Then I'm notching the center point of my sleeve. Then all my pieces are ready right now. For the pockets, I have 4 pieces and I didn't do much, just place my hand and trace the shape I wanted out. So let's get stitching. So to your center back, you want to mark your opening. Please indicate your desired amount of opening you want for this dress. Then from there, you are going to stitch all the way down to the hem. After stitching to the upper part, you are going to fold in and tuck in that raw edge. And you're going to take to your sewing machine and stitch. And you're basically stitching and crossing over and stitching it. After stitching, it's time to place the pocket. I'd already notched where the pocket is going to sit. So just bring your pocket piece and place right side pressing and ensure to pin it in place. You're doing this for both the back and the front piece. After pinning it in place, do well to take to your sewing machine and stitch the pockets down. After stitching the pockets down, we are going to join the dress along the shoulder. So you bring the back or the front over and make sure you have the back and the front placed right side facing. You're going to take to your sewing machine and stitch them along the shoulder. After joining them along the shoulder, bring your sleeve piece over and place right side facing, and you're going to also stitch your sleeve. So if you need a little bit of puff at the top, assuming you included that, you do well to gather it up. So this is mine with the little puff at the top. So I'm just placing my dress right side facing, and I'm going to stitch the sides of my dress. After stitching, you can see our dress is coming together. Get your tape and measure around the neckline. So you want to be as precise as possible. So whatever you have after measuring your neckline, please divide that number by 4. We are going to use that as the radius for our collar. So that will be the neck radius. Please divide it by 4 and note it down. So this is the piece I'm using. I've already gone ahead to fuse my fusible interface using an iron. So I've fused my fusible interface because I want it to be as stable as possible. Next is for me to fold it once like this, and I'm folding it again. So you want to make sure that after folding it, that is enough for your neck radius and your desired width of collar. So assuming you have that, make sure that you placed it on fold. Once again, your neck radius is that round neck measurement that you took from your garment divided by 4. So that is the radius that we are working with. So please note that these other parts are open parts. The only folded part I'm using is the one facing me directly. I'm going to go ahead and mark my radius. Once again, the radius is that neck round divided by 4. So go ahead and mark the radius. So after marking it, I've connected it. Now it's time to mark your desired collar width. So you mark your desired collar width including seaming allowance. After that, do well to cut out your collar. So this is it. After cutting it out, at the open part, I just decided to place a bit of curve. This is optional, but I think it just always looks nice or something. So you can reconfirm the neck round measurement. So this is placed on fold, so it should be half of it plus a little bit extra for seaming allowance. So with that a little bit extra for seaming allowance that I have, I'm going to use that and stitch. So I'm going to place it right side facing, and I'm going to stitch along the neckline. But before then, I just have this piece that I'm going to draw in there, and that will be my button loop. Then after securing it in place, I'm going to go ahead and stitch. After stitching, do well to notch. You want to do well to notch, especially all the curves. So notch, be careful not to cut the seam though. Turn it right side out and make sure that you have your edges pushed out nicely, those corners. It's all nice. By the time you push it out, give it a press at that point. Just give it a good press. Next is for me to go ahead and notch the midpoint of this collar, and also note the midpoint of your dress neckline. If you've noted the midpoint, do well to place it right side facing, obviously both sides at the right side, and stitch in place. After stitching, attach button at the back. Then make a casing for your elastic band at the sleeve area. So stitch, make a casing, then also hem the down part. With that, the dress is pretty much ready. So if this tutorial has been helpful in any way or any form, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of the future uploads. Thank you for watching to this point, and see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.